Kids need to get excited about baseball. Kids need to see the beauty of this game. And more importantly, they need to just enjoy getting outside and playing sports. And they may not be great, but you can still enjoy it and not be on some traveling all-star team and just enjoy running around and having fun with your friends, which I feel like seems to be dwindling across the country.
Well, golly, Chad Chop, your beard looks great. Welcome to the Talkin' Shop podcast, everybody. Listeners, hope you're raking. What does rake mean, Coach?
Random act of kindness every day.
I want to tell you about a random act of non-kindness that happened to me this morning. I wake up 5 a.m., beautiful morning in California, to a text from a buddy. Hey, I think your Instagram got hacked.
Oh no.
Fantastic. So I do a little digging, and another 10, 12 texts come in. I'm getting Instagram messages from you for crypto and money, and I'm pretty sure you got hacked. Turns out, yep, definitely got hacked into the email, hacked into the password. Somehow they got in there. And, there's one thing that makes me want to say curse words. It's getting hacked. So
it hacks you off. Really
just like hacksaw Jim Duggan to me.
Hacksaw
Jim Duggan. Oh man. So, spent the first hour of my day trying to figure that out, going through emails. And I think we're getting to the bottom of it where, I sent in a picture of myself and verify that I'm a real person. And, I've sent multiple messages to Mr. Instagram or Mrs. Meta, whatever the person is. So we'll try to get to the bottom of it. But it got me thinking, man, that's a vulnerable place to be. Like my entire coaching life, everything I've done as Coach Ballgame, it's on there, from travels to skill videos to family, everything. So I just don't like being hacked. Got me off to a rough start there, Coach.
Man, that's a bummer. And yeah, I do think we take for granted being able to do all this stuff on our phones and on the interweb. But you're right. When that happens, technology is great till it's not. And when that happens, it gets you pretty stressed out. And you don't look too stressed right now, which is good on you. You probably breathed through it and kind of got back in the moment. You're just being awesome right now.
There was some breathing involved, and also I let myself grieve for a couple of minutes, and then I'm like, I'm not going to let this ruin my day. Like I'm attached to my phone a lot. Maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is a wake up call. Get away from your phone. Get back to the MySpace page instead of, the Instagram. Get back into AOL Instant Messenger a little bit. Take it back, put the jean shorts on and grab the Atari, and let's get back to simple life. So, but I also had a great day yesterday, which I'm still, so fired up about. It was a full day at the baseball field, MLK day. Attaboy to MLK Jr., who he's kind of the Jackie Robinson of civil rights movement, as far as just like he inspired Jackie, he inspired Roberto Clemente. They looked up to him, and then they wanted to make great choices because of him. And I got to tell that story. I got to talk about him to 90 kids yesterday at the camp. You get there early, you set up, cones and the banners, and you get everybody signed in and ready. But then being able to talk to these kids who, a lot of them don't even know why they're out of school, about this guy, and then tie it in with my Roberto Clemente story and Jackie Robinson. It was about as good as it gets. So that fired me up. And then I got to coach the all girls sandlot yesterday. Awesome. After camp. I had a few brothers that covered my normal sandlot, so I was able to attend the all girls, and man, that was a nice change of pace, different salutes. Instead of the dancing on a toilet, we were dancing on cupcakes,
You
Instead
were.
of the Brad Pitt
Stamos.
salute or Stamos salute, we're doing the ponytail salute and the fingernail salute. But it's interesting how, for the most part, girls are way more attentive, and they just soak up the information a lot more. But the love was just there, the hustle, the energy, all of that stuff. So really dug it. And I want to talk about coaching daughters and girls with our guest today, who happens to be a guy who's called 6 Super Bowls, 24 World Series. He's a Hall of Famer, for crying out loud. It's Joe Buck. So he's got a couple of daughters, also got a couple of sons. So I want to talk to him about parenting and coaching youth sports with his kids, which will be fun, and talk some broadcasting. But when you hear that name, Joe Buck, man, what do you think? That's big game, Joe Buck.
Exactly what I was going to say. When I hear Joe Buck's name, I think big game, and that, recognizable voice, and you feel, it almost puts you at ease. If you're hearing Joe Buck's voice, that's going to be a good day as a sports fan, because that's a big game. You're probably having some good food, and he's going to just have the timing and the presence and the tone of his voice. Such a pro Joe. I can't wait to talk to Joe and get to know him, and good on you for getting him to come on. I'm really excited to meet Joe Buck.
Well, I'll get all the praises out of the way, because he won't like to hear him in person, but I met him through a mutual friend, my pal Don Harvey, who's an actor, and they knew each other, and I was playing music with Don, and he came over and watched the band play a little music. And Don was like, you got to check out this guy's, speaking of Instagram, you got to check out his Instagram. He coaches kids. He loves baseball. He makes it different. And Joe jumped on board, and he's done a lot of things to open up doors for me. And when you've got a guy and you've got that name that's been in baseball for, over 60 years, people perk their ears. They show some interest. He's flown to New York a couple times to meet with MLB on my behalf to try and get me a job coaching play ball camps for kids.
So cool.
And anytime I ask him, I try not to ask him for favors, but anytime I ask him, hey, he's just always, how can I help? How can I help? And I know it's just because he's passionate about baseball, and he's passionate about the next generation. And I think he would like to leave a legacy that, hey, I did something about this game. I've seen this game at its best. I've seen it at its worst. I want this game to last. And he really was attracted to the idea that what we're doing as coaches transcends baseball, and it goes into the home and the communities, just making the game more fun and interesting. But like you said, when you hear his voice, it's kind of like you're just chatting with a guy in the bar. He's your pal. And just from a technical standpoint, like, I don't know how he does what he does. I just don't know how he's flawless every second of the game. And he just tees up his co-announcer, color commentator. He tees him up, whether it's Troy or Smoltzy. And then he gets out of the way. But some of the calls he's had, the miracle, the Minneapolis Miracle, or the Cubs winning the World Series, all the way back to his first World Series with the Yankees. Like, he's a 27-year-old guy, and he's calling a World Series, and it's just flawless and strong. So we'll break it all down with him. I want to ask him, about those first broadcasts and the nerves and the preparation. I think that's something that we can tie into coaching, is like, how does he prepare? He just called a Bucks Eagles game this past weekend. I think he's got Packers this coming weekend. So we'll talk to him about that and what he's doing to prep. But what kind of things did you want to ask the Hall of Famer, Joe Buck?
Yeah, I got some ideas down here. One of the things I wanted to ask him is, working with Smoltzy and Troy Aikman, like, you see the game from a different lens when you ask them a question and how they respond, like some Hall of Fame minds. And just want to ask him how much he enjoys that, or if he's learned anything from them. I know he has, but ask him that, ask him what his most memorable call has been, potentially an interview Mount Rushmore, which could put him on a spot there, but just like some guys that when he thinks about, interviewing, he's interviewed some just amazing humans.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I got some ideas.
It's fun.
Can't
Well,
wait.
just a great guy, a great dad, great friend, and we'll have a fun chat. I've got some Playing Pepper lined up where we'll ask some quick, short answer questions. We'll go deep a little bit, and then I'm super pumped for a little Joe Buck World Series trivia where it's going to be you versus him, and you guys will have 10 seconds. Whoever answers correctly first gets the point. If after 10 seconds, neither of you get it right, I get the point, and we'll see who wins. It's going to be competitive.
The viewer's going to win. That's
win. The viewers are they're definitely going to win. They're oh man, I'm already over getting hacked. I'm over it.
I know. We'll get in the moment. We'll stay in the moment. We're going to be awesome, and then I know that's hanging over your head a bit. So you're a gamer. That's what a ball player does. You're responding in a positive way, and I love that about you.
Also, just coaching for 12 hours yesterday, kind of lost the voice a little bit, so I put a little throat coat in the coffee mug here, a little hot water, a little honey, and we'll see how it goes. But hey, you had
hot water, honey.
You got the same thing. We'll ask Joe Buck about his voice and how he keeps it strong and sharp and ready to go. He'll be on in a few minutes, but you had something you wanted to share. You had an issue this weekend as far as a coach goes. Let me know what it was all about.
I had a couple of really good moments for coaches to. We talk about winning the hearts at all costs, right? And sometimes that might cost you a game or something that you may not. It's outside of your control. So one of our players, extremely good athlete, got in a little bit of trouble. So got a phone call from his parents, and he said, "Hey, I know this is going to put you in a tough bind this weekend, but so-and-so is we're not going to let him play. We need to teach him a lesson through this moment, and we think it's important." And I jumped on board right away. It's like, absolutely. Like this tournament this weekend doesn't matter one bit. What matters is, I care about your son just as much as you do, and we need to make sure he learns from this and grows through it. And we're gonna love him through it. I ended up having a phone call with the player and just making sure he knows and expressing like, hey, yeah, you made a mistake and there's a consequence, and I support your parents in that. But also know that I unconditionally love you and care about you, and we're gonna love you through this. And something that we'll talk to your teammates about too. And if they can learn from it, that's great. But as a coach, like, remember, it's not about the win or loss. So in that moment, that was a no-brainer for me as a coach. Like, yeah, absolutely. Like, fully support your decision, Dad. And we love the kid. And like I said, such a bright future. And him learning from this, I think, is only going to help him grow. And so as a coach, like, look for those moments. And awesome. that was really cool. Yeah, it was really. I mean, obviously it was a bummer, but at the same time, just having that awareness of like, okay, this is what it's about.
Well, my response to that, Chopper, is that I think you did it the right way. Obviously, I think that the parents did it the right way. We won't discuss exactly what happened, but I think some coaches could be tempted in that moment to say, hey, this is our best player. We need them to play in this tournament so we can win. But you're sacrificing the character of this kiddo, right? So, applause to you for looking through the right lens, that lens we talk about of building character and making kids want to have fun. But the win of a tournament or a game, that's not most important, not even close. So good on you there, man. I kind of look up to you as a mentor in a way. I think you have such great wisdom when it comes to things like that. And were you tempted to want to push back on what the parents were thinking there?
Not at all. Yeah, it was instantaneous of like, okay, yeah, that's a no-brainer. And it could have led to, because we had some COVID issues too. Like, that could have led to us potentially having to forfeit, and it would have been fine. Actually, you know what? To me, looking at it, like if we would have had to forfeit, it's almost like it's more impactful, right? Because it's just, like I said, it's just one of those things, and even after this tournament, talked to the boys and was just reminded them like, hey, those of you that want to get drafted or get that scholarship, don't lose sight of, you don't need to be the best version of yourself until you're 17 and 18. So like these mistakes that we're making, like we'll continue to learn from them, but let's not get down on ourselves. Like, let's take the positive from the weekend. Let's learn from the mistakes, and let's just remind ourselves that we'll get back to work, but we're a work in progress, and that's okay. And that's beautiful. So it's cool. And these kids are going to go where they want to go. And my goodness, we've got studs all over the yard. So he's as good of a player as we have, but we got some studs all over the yard.
It reminds me of something I was listening to this morning, which was the Alex Avila interview, which is awesome and just so great. Yeah, a guy, 13-year major league career, respected by everybody in the game. And the comment you said about what scouts look for, right? What does a college coach look for? If they're there, they know you're good. They want to see you go 0 for 4. They want to see you fail. They want to see you make mistakes and then see how you can respond. And he agreed wholeheartedly. He's like, if I was a coach, I'd be doing the exact same thing. Just so important to build these kids' character and let them know that, right? That the talent, it gets you in the door, and it gets the coaches there. They'll be in the bleachers watching, but to make it to that next level, you've got to be able to respond the right way.
Yeah, I always remind the guys, and it's easy for me to remind them because looking at my career, like that was one of the big things was, how I dealt with failure. I'd never failed on a baseball field until my second season of pro ball. Like first season of pro ball, led the league in hits. There's no failure there. I was the nicest guy on the field and, toasted the town, and man, what a great attitude. Second year of pro ball, I failed tremendously, and I had a bad attitude, and I was a bad teammate, and I was selfish, and I felt sorry for myself. You got a true glimpse of your character. So I had to make that adjustment and make sure that I controlled my attitude, my effort, what kind of teammate I was. And I changed and I grew through that. So that's when I see those in my players. It's like, hey, I have another stud, really great athlete, got out a few times, didn't hustle down to first, didn't hustle back in the dugout. And I called him aside and said, hey, in 3 years, scouts are going to be watching you. And it's not fair to the type of person you are for them to judge you on that decision. So get in a habit of having a flush run back to the dugout and a flush run down to first, where you take that aggression out in a sprint and then you sprint back to the dugout. And then at least they're saying like, dang, this kid's fast, So it's just those little things that we can teach these kids.
I had a moment with my oldest group and when I'm coaching these 11 and 12-year-olds, I've, for the most part, been coaching these kids for 7-8 years now. So awesome. They know it all. They've been here since 4 years old, and they've worked their way up the ranks. And I had a moment where my oldest group was just lacking energy, just wasn't hustling to their positions, wasn't really jumping on board with the Coach Ballgame way of making good choices is what we're looking for here. And then, the hits and the home runs and the strikeouts, they'll all come, but it doesn't really matter to me. I want to see the energy. And so I brought them in for a team meeting, and I said, and when I call a team meeting and when I know that I'm going to challenge these kids, I definitely have to have a little check with myself. Like, I cannot come from a place of anger. I can't push these kids away. I've got to show empathy here. I've got to really understand where each kid is at on that specific day. And then I can go. And I started with, you guys, the right way to do this, right? You've heard me and my assistant coaches talk about this for 8 years. And those kids that are in left field and in right field, it looks like they're playing a scrimmage game. They're watching you. Those kids are watching what you do. They can't really even hear what you say right now, but they watch the way you run from the dugout to center field. They're watching how you approach somebody that just failed or struck out. And I think I can get passive aggressive in those moments sometimes. So I always have to know that about myself and check myself on that. And where I went yesterday was the way you're moving your body and the way your energy is right now. It's making my stomach nauseous. And, you know, right when you say anything like you guys are making my body feel something negatively, it's always a tough balance there. But I've found that to be honest. I mean, that's honest. Like it jolts me when I see kids, you know, just not paying attention or not giving that effort. And then when I ask them to do it and they still don't, that's really tough. And when they're a seasoned veteran of 8 years, man, that can almost hurt my feelings and make me nauseous. Where do you go when you're unsettled? When you're unsettled like that, where do you go? And do you call a team meeting if need be?
You know, it's one of those things. I'm having this conversation currently with some of my coaches and even some of my parents, because I know where I used to go. You and I both know where we used to go as a coach. That's an everybody on the line situation, and we're going to run until someone throws up, or you guys are going to run until I get tired watching you.
I just want every parent out there to know, me, Coach Ballgame, and Coach Chop, we did it. We did those things. We were coaching the wrong way.
Or, you know, Jimmy's not working hard, so Jimmy, I'm going to make you watch your teammates run, and then they're going to be mad. You know, we did all those quote unquote tricks that are not tricks. We did, and
I'm still tempted today. There's still temptations of calling a kid out in front of the rest of the group. I had it just a few days ago. The temptations are never going to go. You're just trying to educate yourself as much as you can to fight those temptations of shaming or things like that. It's just never going to work.
So I had this conversation yesterday with a parent and trying to problem solve this. The issue we have right now, and it's a beautiful issue, is our kids love each other. So when we come into a practice setting, there's so much love and joy that they sometimes lose sight of, like, hey, we're here to make each other great, and we're here to push each other and hold each other accountable. And we have this 3-hour practice where, you know, you guys have all raised your hand saying you want to be great, and that comes at a cost. And we know what that takes as coaches. And when they're just having fun, half of you loves it, but the other half's like, hey, right now it's live at bats, and we're missing this opportunity to compete. And so I'm having this battle right now. It's like, yeah, I could make them run. I don't want to do that. So what I've decided to do is I think I'm gonna figure out ways to, you know, have a prize. You know, maybe it's a $25 gift card to Dick's Sporting Goods, or favorite candy, you know, or, you know, I have this belt that I made for the Dodgers. That's world championship, like wrestling style belt. And maybe, you know, the kid who personifies effort and focus and grit that practice gets to wear that sucker home. And, you know, so just trying to find ways that you can punish or you can praise. So I'm going to exhaust every other option before I have to say everyone on the line. And that's what I'm going to do, you know? So that's my plan.
That's great. Exhaust every option. That's the key. And, you know, I had a couple dads just come by camp yesterday, and they've, you know, tried to follow in my footsteps. And I have to let them know this, you know, I started off just passive aggressive, and those temptations you have of either yelling at a kid or calling somebody out. Yeah, I feel them all, and I still feel them to this day. But, you know, being able to rally other coaches, you know, through this podcast, and I've had a lot of parents talk about this podcast, how they really enjoy it. They love listening. It is inspiring, and it does, in the moment when I want to put them on the line and run them, I'm like, wait, you know, I better practice what I preach here. Yeah. And so it holds me accountable.
Helps with a missed call too. Helps with a missed call. When an umpire blows a call in a big game, you know, semifinal or championship game, and the whole coaching staff wants to let the umpire know, you know, I'm real quick to be like, hey guys, like, let's just let the kids overcome this. Like, yeah, that wasn't a great call, but okay. Like, we're not getting that call overturned. You know, he said he tagged him. He didn't tag him, but what am I going to do? There's nothing I can do. So let's let these boys overcome it, and let's remind them that we still have a great opportunity in the moment to do something awesome.
Yep. And, you know, when I look at a coach, I look at their physical presence, and I look at, you know, what's their body saying right now in those moments. And you get the frantic ones, you get the hands, you get the air, right. But it's those ones with their arms crossed in those moments, just rocking on the bench. Yeah. Just Phil Jackson, just, like I even think of Buck Showalter, like the face is just calm and chill, and a guy that I think, you know, also is super chill in the moment, and just kind of has, for me anyway, it seems like a slow heartbeat in the big moment, is a guy named Joe Buck.
Can you hear me?
And the slowest heartbeat I know is one of my best pals, and he's here with us today. Chad Chop, 6 Super Bowls. Chad Chop, 24 World Series. I think that number's right. Chad Chop, 8 Emmys. He's a Hall of Famer. And I hear when you get inducted into the Hall of Fame, that's a pretty big deal. He's a loving husband. He's a fantastic father of 4 beautiful kids. He's a really great golfer. He's better than me. And I don't like that. So I'm really working hard. And I just love him. Joe Buck.
Oh, it's
Attaboy.
me. This is
you.
my part. That was all about me.
Joe, I want you to meet my pal, Coach Chad Chopper. He was the BP coach and the fungo hitter and the video analysis guy for the Giants for 5 years, and then the Dodgers for the last 5 years. You guys have probably been in the same workspace many a time. But he's also a high school baseball coach, and he's got a great beard. So
good beard, strong beard.
Yeah. I mean, all that stuff's true, especially that we've been in the same workplace. But as Chad Chop will tell you, when the media comes in, it's like somebody just ignited a stink bomb, and everybody kind of scurries for the corners. So whether you go into the Giants locker room or the Dodgers locker room, we walk in this little holding pen. It's like a petting zoo, and players walk by, and managers, and Bob Guerin will give me a weird look, like out of the corner of his eye. And then next thing you know, we're in Dave Roberts' office asking him why they took out a pitcher in the 7th inning who was rolling, and he gets mad, and then we leave. That's kind of how it goes. And all the people that I just mentioned, especially Dave Roberts, who I know has been a guest on your show, couldn't love the guy anymore. But, you know, we can get into a baseball conversation whenever you want, but I think sometimes they're taking a lot of these decisions out of managers' hands, and that's got to be frustrating for them. Total non sequitur, but I'm happy to be on, and it's good to see your bright, shining faces.
It's great to have you, man. It's awesome to have you on, and so well respected. We were talking about you earlier, and talking about, as a fan, when we get to hear your voice, a lot of things come to mind. It's going to be a big game, because if you're calling it, it's a big game, and it's just exciting. You know, you're going to have a good meal, and we know that your timing is going to be impeccable, and it's your tone. It's just exciting. So when I hear your voice, that's what comes to mind. And now, after you shared that story, you're 100% right. So now I'm going to start thinking about how, when you guys come in, it spreads like wildfire in the clubhouse, and everyone goes to the shower, and the media, and they go hide.
Oh my God. Yeah. And when I was doing the Cardinals, you know, I had the ability and the key to get behind the Wizards curtain, and I could go back, and the action in a major league locker room happens in the food room. And in other parts of the clubhouse, you know, there are little conversations going on, but if you want to see what a team's all about, be a fly on the wall. And there are plenty of flies on the wall in the food room, because that's where people all come together. That's where, you know, cards are played. That's where junk is given. That's where whatever it is. And you really see guys for who they are. And then now, as the national guy, you know, we just have no relationships with anybody. And that's kind of what I miss from doing. I did the Cardinals for, I don't know, 15, 16 years. And you travel around, and you're on the charters, and you're checking into hotel rooms at 4 o'clock in the morning after a late flight from Houston. And that's where you get to become friends and you really become fans of these players as much as anything. And now when we're kind of the mercenaries coming in for a network, you go in, you do the game, you shake hands, you ask I don't know, Justin Turner 5 questions. Couldn't be a better guy, but you don't really get to know him. And that's the part of doing the games on Fox that I really miss and what I used to have when I was doing the day-to-day with the Cardinals.
My office with the Giants was the kitchen. I would go and I'd play in cards with Longo, playing cribbage, $1 a point. And you can ask Longo who got the better end of that.
Yeah,
I did.
I'm sure you did, or you wouldn't have brought it up. But I think, you realize how competitive these guys are. And a lot of them are. And I would say the team that's not playing cards together probably isn't very tight and probably isn't winning. And back in the day when I'd go on the charters, like, you have forever, the middle seat goes down, the meal money comes out. I don't know how they do that anymore, but back then it was packets of cash and guys are playing cards and they're giving each other trouble. And yeah, there's money exchange, but it's more about bonding and becoming a team and enjoying one another's company. I think that stuff carries over. And I think those teams that are close that way, and there are no divisions in the clubhouse. And, I think of a guy like Kevin Millar who could talk to a wall for a half an hour, and his value to a team, aside from being a really good player and a good hitter, was he brought the Latin guys next to the white guys next to, there were no divisions, and it was just equal opportunity ribbing. And that's what teams should be and can be all about.
Yeah. Players want to be the glue. So you think Kevin Millar, that's the glue. And
yeah,
I was the card dealer on the plane for both the Giants and the Dodgers. So I can speak off the record at some point with you on all kinds of stuff. But you're right.
That's
it's
like
amazing.
Being a croupier for James Bond.
Amazing.
That's where you see everybody's. And if you're the guy holding the cards, A, that means you're trusted, and B, right, you're kind of Switzerland sometimes with these. And I'm sure you were in plenty of games, but I don't know. It's the stuff that the average fan doesn't ever get a chance to see. And when I was a kid, people are always like, I always get more. I mean, for those two teams right there, their fan bases, oh, you hate my team, you hate the Dodgers, you hate the Giants. But I'm doing the game as much for the other side too. And you can't, but all year long, fans hear games broadcast by their team's announcers. And I did the same thing when I was doing the Cardinals. And you look at the game completely differently than when you sit there for a network. So, those two fan bases that you used to serve in some way with the Dodgers and the Giants are, I don't know. I lost my previous train of thought because I know I'm coming on a podcast that has a lot of listeners out West. And it's almost like the argument is lost before I can even begin it, because I have to get excited for the other side, and fans' ears just can't handle that. It makes people's brains explode.
Well, I mean, talking about Nance, I read Jim Nance's book, and I mean, he's been a national guy for as long as you, maybe even longer. And in the book, he says, if both fan bases don't hate you, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Because, you have to go down the middle with it. And for fans that, just fans that don't get that or don't understand that he's not your guy, he's both teams' guy. There's just a lot of maturity that's needed. And I think that's why we started the podcast, to make sports fans a little more mature.
No, and I think you're doing that. And I'm a fan of everything you guys, and you in particular, do, James, which I don't even like calling you James, but I will. I know you're Coach Ballgame, and I know what you do, and I've seen it in action, and I've seen the kind of person that you are. And what I was starting to say earlier is, when I was a kid, my day was made by how the Cardinals played the previous night. Like if the Cardinals won, man, I woke up, I was a happy kid. And if they lost, I woke up and I was mad and sad, and I couldn't wait until they played again. And then all of a sudden, I started going on more and more charters. And then I would see Lee Smith, give up a game-winning 9,000-foot home run in Cincinnati, and I'm just crushed. And I get on the plane, and down goes the middle seat. His line was, somebody better back up the gin truck. I blew another one, and then he'd have a couple of drinks, play cards, and he's on to the next day. And you just that kind of boyhood fandom kind of leaves you, or it left me as a little kid. So now, as a 52-year-old man, I show up at these games, and I'm just trying not to screw up. I'm trying to make my network happy, and fans are like, you're rooting for, I'm like, I haven't rooted for anything in baseball since I was unable to drive. And now I'm getting charged with this. So it gets frustrating, but to get back to the most important stuff, what you guys are doing and shining a light on a lot of really good people that are in sports and are in baseball, that have great stories to tell, that have huge, generous hearts. I think there's real value in that. So I don't know anybody, in the case of Coach Ballgame, who has a public persona that matches their private, personal persona better than you. You are as legitimately genuine as anybody can be, and that's why people are drawn to you. It's not an act, and so. That's why I was drawn to you. And I was like, whatever I can do to help this guy, I'm going to help him, because kids need to get excited about baseball. Kids need to see the beauty of this game. And more importantly, they need to just enjoy getting outside and playing sports. And they may not be great, but you can still enjoy it and not be on some traveling all-star team, and just enjoy running around and having fun with your friends, which I feel like seems to be dwindling across the country.
Well, you tapped into my love language of words of affirmation. Golly, my heart just palpitates when I hear those good words, and especially from a guy like you, Joe, man. I mean, I talked about it already before you came on, just how many doors you've opened. And I got an Ozzie Smith signed baseball I'm looking at. I gave one to my dad for Father's Day, because you just called him up and said, hey, meet this guy. And something I've talked about with Chad on the podcast is every single player that I've met, most of them because you were like, hey, go meet this guy. He's got a funny hat and a drum, and he coaches kids. Ken Griffey Jr., Nolan Arenado, Alex Bregman, the list goes on and on. They all shake me. They shake my hand. They look me in the eye, and they treat me equally. Nobody has treated me less than. Same thing on this podcast. Everybody respects Chad so much that Mookie Betts comes on, and Dave Roberts, and they all have such nice things to say about him, because they entrusted him with their poker games, and he just has this positivity. So I think, and I'll let Chopper ask you the first question. We'll go back and forth, but when you meet people that are your heroes, or that you've looked up to or listened to call games for your entire life, and they're present and they care about you, it means the world. That's what you remember. That's what's memorable. So just thank you for being a friend and opening those doors, Joe Buck.
Well, I do it because I get it back. I get uplifted by that stuff. And I enjoy seeing Harrison Bader, do an attaboy challenge with you. And I like shining a light on a lot of great people in the sport that we all three love. And there are so many of them, but I think it doesn't really have to do with sports so much as it has to do with just being a good person. And I think if you listen to the national narrative, and you go on social media and you read the New York Post app, I mean, everything just feels so nasty, and everything, the word hate gets thrown around, and I hate that. And this guy, and yet when you get down to meeting people and shaking their hand and looking them in the eye, which is, I think, was happening a lot more than it used to. And I'm guilty of getting on an elevator and just having my head down in my phone, and just trying not to make eye contact for fear of meeting somebody new. I think that those people still exist, And there are a lot of great people walking this planet and living in this country. And I think when you can put A with B and A sees how great B is and vice versa, everybody benefits. So I think all that, people are still people. I think there's a lot of misinformation with where we are as a country, whether it's politically or whatever it might be, that we need to just take a time out and get back to connecting with people, because for the most part, everybody's hoping for the best for everybody else. And I just love seeing that stuff because we're all bombarded with the other.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a comment on that from yesterday. Coaching a game against a coach from Washington, the state of Washington. And those kids, came to Arizona. Now they're not wearing masks and all this stuff. And so he was like, man, my kids are really happy, and started talking about everything you're talking about. And I told him, I said, the reality is what we see on TV is not real and it's not genuine. Really, most all of us are pretty middle, and one leans one way, one leans the other, but we all want what's best for each other, and we love each other, and we want the common good.
Yeah.
So it was really cool just to touch on that. Question I have for you. Go ahead.
And I just don't, I don't want to keep
right
going on and on, but I do have a lot more hope, and I do have a lot more positive thoughts than, because it's all clicks, and it's all look at me, and it's all on a national level and on a superficial level. But like I said, I think we're all kind of pulling for each other. I hope so. And if you're not, I think you're going to get found out pretty quick.
Yeah. And just to put a button on this, like the national attraction to a long form conversation like a podcast, it's definitely growing. And to be able to have an hour to chat with somebody, listen to your podcast, Joe, just to hear the honesty that comes from that and other podcasts, like, if we can get more into that, which I think we are, of just like listening to a full on long conversation, not just 10 minutes on David Letterman, it really, you get to learn about these people that you love and that you respect. And, I've definitely learned a ton from listening to, my heroes on podcasts.
Well, it's just funny because you develop, and I'm guilty of it too. You develop a sense of who someone is, and you have no idea. You have no idea. It's based on how they play a game, or it's based on a post-game quote, or it's based on, sound bites that are just nothing. And then you start peeling back the layers, and you see who the person really is. It's like, oh my God, that person's not anything like what I thought they were. And, I think that's why podcasts and having guests on podcasts really work, because you say, oh, whoever it is, whoever we've had on our podcast, I know you guys have a great list, and, whether it's Eddie Vedder or David Spade, or it doesn't matter. And you have one thought about David, and then in the case of Spade, you hear about how he grew up and the different things he went through as a kid. And, a lot of the same stuff that everybody goes through, the same stuff. And I was made fun of as a kid. I don't think that stuff ever leaves you. I'm so anti-bullying, and yet in a world where I feel like, at least in a country where I feel like we're getting that message across, you still have social media that becomes exactly what that was in the schoolyard, but now it's on social media, and the stuff that's allowed on there and the nastiness that exists is just is a pull down for anybody involved, whether you're the target of it, or you're laughing at it, or it's the same stuff that was happening on the playground. And I, for the life of me, I can't believe that it is as popular as it is. But that's just the world we live in right now. And like I said, if you take that out of the equation and you're actually face to face, none of that stuff is said. And people are truly, I think, rooting for one another to succeed. So I keep cutting you off there, Chad Chop. So go ahead.
Question I have for you, and it's your opportunity to work with the John Smoltz, the Troy Aikman. What's something you've learned from them, because they're seeing the game from a totally different lens with that Hall of Fame mind? Just touch on that, like something, or just what that's like when you can pose a question to them and their response, and it's like, wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things there. There's a long list of great Hall of Fame players that couldn't coach. because they couldn't really relate to somebody who couldn't physically do what they were gifted with being able to do. And I think of Bob Gibson, who was one of the greatest pitchers in any era, and tough and great athlete, was, a Harlem Globetrotter, and was just a really hard power right-hander that was as tough as nails. And he tried to coach for the Atlanta Braves, and he's telling guys to, dot the outside corner and, break off a breaking ball and it wasn't up to what he was used to throwing himself. And he couldn't really relate. I think when it comes to Troy and John, I learned really fast why they were successful, why Smoltz was on a team that won 14 straight divisional titles. They won just the one world championship. He's in the Hall of Fame. Troy, 3-time Super Bowl champ. And it's about work ethic. It's about preparation, and it's boring stuff. It's cliche stuff, but it's true. That cliches are boring, but they're true because that's how things work. And so when I saw Troy's preparation with how he got ready for a game, he would get ready for a game like he was going to go face the Giants defense that day. And John Smoltz has numbers and charts and stuff that he does by hand on an iPad now. It used to be in a notebook. Now it's on an iPad with a pen. So one person I know that uses a pen on an iPad. I just throw that thing away. And he's going through numbers, different pitching counts, what guys are looking for, where they're vulnerable. And he's preparing to pitch to both lineups in the game that we're about to do. So he's looking at it from the booth like he would be looking at it from the mound. Troy's looking at the game from the booth like he would be looking at it down on the field, surveying a defense. And then the next level is being able to communicate it to people who have never done that and haven't make sense. And that's where I think Troy's really good. I think baseball lends itself to a little bit more common talk and words that we all understand. Football, a lot of the analysts, I think, get into too much football speak. And when you say, well, they're running a 2-deep zone and they've got they're in shell coverage and they're dropping a fire zone blitz, and it doesn't mean anything. It means something to 1/1,000,000th of the audience that played in the NFL or really cares to hear that. But it's about making audiences understand why one team's winning and one team's losing, and not leaning on the language that people don't really understand or even care to hear.
That's what I think you do such a good job of too, is we talk about you like you're relatable. Like when we're hearing you talk and do a game, it feels like you're next to us, on the couch, and you're one of us. And I think, Chad, I might be becoming a dinosaur, and I never want to be the get off my lawn guy. I refuse to do that. I love the game too much, but John and I both get accused of that. Like back when the game was good. I mean, the game has evolved, and evolution's great. And I think, all things change, and I'm not against that. But I'm not doing a game where I'm doing a World Series Game 7, and we've got the biggest audience we could possibly have for that game, and there are more people under the tent watching these games, and I'm going to talk about somebody's WAR, or I'm going to talk about spin rate, or I'm going to talk about, because it requires too many levels of explanation. I mean, like, what's a good spin rate? I don't know. I mean, and if you're just throwing that stuff out, it requires too much talk. I'd rather just watch the game, highlight the game, hit the main points, and in some ways get out of the way. And that's kind of how I look at it. Like I'm, and maybe that soon somebody else will be doing it, and it'll be Game 6 of the World Series, and they're talking about that stuff. That's just not the way I do it. And that's not really the way Fox wants me to do it, because we're not, there still has to be room in this game for batting average, for RBIs, for home runs, for stolen bases. These are things that people can wrap their head around fast when you're doing a game. If you want that other stuff, it's readily available in other places, and I assume people go find that stuff. I just don't, that's not my thing. So that's not how I do a game. And eventually that'll probably get me
fired, but it's not stuff that interests me.
Can't wait to bring back old school baseball to this. I just took this head coaching job at this high school, and I had these talks with Bob Guerin because he managed the A's back in the day, Moneyball. And I was like, Bob, I get it. You don't bunt the whole year, and I understand the math behind that. But when the playoffs come around, you're bunting, and that's my issue.
Don't even get me started.
I know.
And I used to throw to Bob Guerin when I was a kid because he was in the Cardinals organization, and I was a pitcher in high school and pretty good at the high school level. Tried to walk on at Indiana and just was terrible. But I would learn from the Cardinals pitching coaches over the years. Hub Kittle was the first guy that kind of tutored me down in the Cardinals bullpen, and he'd make Guerin come down and catch me, which is, I don't even think he remembers that, but that's kind of how I grew up. And I get it. I just don't understand why at some points common sense or logic doesn't factor into the equation. If you're down by 1 or down by 2, and you've got a left-handed batter up and the entire world is on the right side of the infield, might make some sense to try to get on base and get something started instead of just continuing to bang your head against a wall against a pitcher that you can't hit right now. Just change it up. I don't. So I get all the analytics. I think it's great. It's great to quantify stuff, but there are times, and you know this, you both do, where so-and-so shows up at the ballpark and he had a big night out last night. Let's put it in those terms. And he's not ready maybe for his time in the spotlight. Or you can look in somebody's eyes in the dugout and say, this guy doesn't want to be in the crosshairs right now. Like, what are the analytics for Derek Jeter at the end of his career at shortstop? I don't know. They probably weren't that good, but if the bases were loaded and the Yankees were up by 1 run and there was 2 out in the 9th inning, I'd probably want the ball hit to Derek Jeter because he's the one out there going, I hope they hit it to me because I'll make the play. And you can't say that for everybody else. And somebody's analytics might be better, but it doesn't mean they're going to rise to the challenge. So, you could go on and on and on about this stuff, but I guess in some circles that makes me kind of a dinosaur, but I'm happy with my short arms and my carnivorous habits of being a dinosaur.
The game still has a heartbeat. That's what I tell people. This game still has a pulse. Right.
Well, La Russa, every time after a game, when I'd go down to his office all the time, and he was a good friend and still is, and his tired rote line, which I said to him 100 times, like, I'm so sick of you saying it, is these are men, not machines. And if I heard him say that once, I heard him say it 155 times. These are men, not machines. I'm like, but when you really think about it, they are. It's this guy standing at the plate with a bat. It's that guy standing on the mound with a ball, and it's may the best person win. And no matter what's been done in the past, and no matter what all the numbers that people are crunching in another room tell you, nobody's ever seen this matchup before. Nobody's ever seen this at this time on this night with this circumstance. And we'll see what happens. And numbers can't predict exactly what's going to take place.
Good. I mean, we've talked to a lot of guys on this podcast about, what excites you about the game? What is still great about the game? And this word grinder or gamer keeps coming up. And Adam Kennedy said, I think it's a great time to be the base stealer or the ball player that does the little things. And when I listen to a game, I notice that in your voice, like you dig that too. You dig the stealing home, or you dig the those non-analytic, like home run, walk things. And I mean, that's call me a dinosaur too, but I think there is a space for that gamer or that grinder in today's game. I think the question I have, Joe, is like, what still excites you about going to a ball game and calling a baseball game? 24 World Series. I mean, it's like Tiger Woods with, like, how does he still get excited to play a golf tournament? What still gets you up and going at a ball game?
It's what I do. It's part of who I am. And I love sitting there, and I love and this is the last time I'm bringing any of this up, but back when this was all kind of getting going in my career, you could look at pitching matchups and you could go, oh my God, this thing's lining up for Kurt Schilling to pitch against, whoever, doesn't matter. And now with the way these bullpens are used and, oh yeah, well, sure, Max Scherzer's great. So he'll just come in and close the game. And then, he'll just take a couple days off and on his throw. Well, it's his throw day. Okay, well, great. It's his throw day. But pretty sure there's not, a national TV audience and 55,000 people watching his throw day with a guy trying to knock the Dodgers out of the playoffs sitting down there in the bullpen while he does this. I mean, it's just not that easy. So I love seeing who's showing up with what every game. Are we going to see are we going to see Pedro Martinez mow down the first 6 guys in this game? Or are we going to see Pedro not on? Or are we going to see a mixture of both where guys are scrapping out at bats and just trying to make contact and trying to get something going on the bases? I mean, you have no idea what you're going to see anytime you show up at a game. And I do love those scrappy guys. I do love the Adam Kennedy type guys that aren't all one thing. It's not, Steve Balboni standing at the plate, pretty much one trick pony. And he was good. I mean, but he's not getting on base and making things happen. He's standing there like a statue. And if you make a mistake, he's going to hit it off the end of the world. But I like the guys that are versatile and they can hit a home run, but they can also rip one down into the corner and turn it into a triple. And if somebody bobbles it, they're scoring. I mean, those guys are the guys that I love to watch. And, I always introduce you, James, as the guy who held the hit by pitch record at Brown. But I like those guys. They're like, you need somebody on base. I'll do it. I don't, it's like Bad News Bears and, whoever the stats kid was that got hit by the pitch, or Rudy getting hit by the pitch in Bad News Bears, and ow, that hurts, but he's on base. And hey, it led to Kelly Leak. They came up a little short in the original, but there were guys trying to get on base and make things happen. So give me that. So I love it. You just have no idea what you're going to see. And to put your mind and your voice to it is fun for me. And that'll never go away. I don't think. That's why you see Al Michaels being great at what he does at 76, 77 years old. And, these guys that do it forever, it's because it's invigorating. It's fun.
I've been looking forward to this. This is super, super fun for me. Hopefully it is for you too. It's a little game, and listeners out there, see if you can beat these guys. This is a little trivia called Joe Buck World Series Trivia. And the way we'll play it is, I'll pose a question, and it's all Joe Buck World Series games trivia. You guys have 10 seconds to try and come up with the right answer. Whoever answers it first gets the point. If neither of you get it right after 10 seconds, I get the point. Baby.
Okay. But this is about games that I've called. There's a chance I don't get any one of these right. I'm just going to throw that out there right now.
Totally cool. You live in the present.
Okay.
Number one.
But let me say one more thing. Do you want me to shout it out if I know the answer, or am
shout,
Okay,
right.
And
we'll go first come, first serve, shout, no raising hands.
And I'm going to let Joe shout first, just so it's
what, do you know
pleasing
the answers?
to the ear.
Have you seen these questions before, Chad?
He said trivia. He said trivia. So I went one way or the other. I went with Cardinals trivia,
which is so wrong.
That wasn't right. So that's on me.
Okay.
All right.
I think you shout. I think Joe wants your best shot, right?
Okay. Oh, yeah.
He wants your hole
I
in
think
one.
You shout. Let me have it. I'm happy to lose at trivia about myself.
So
Chopper just had a hole in one the other day, by the way.
152.
How many is that?
That's one.
One more than me.
Attaboy.
Attaboy. Number one, in World Series only, Joe Buck calling games. Started in 96, did 98, and then 2000 to the present. Most hits all time. What player has the most hits all time in those World Series games?
I would say
in
Jeter.
his career. Wow.
Correct.
Yeah, good
1-0
answer.
Joe Buck.
Great answer.
Derek Jeter with 44 hits in a Joe Buck World Series game.
Yeah.
Number two.
Again,
It's a lot.
I'm just
That's
glad I got one.
unbelievable, by the way.
Yeah.
44.
Well, he was there a lot.
Number, I think 7 or 8 times. Number 2, most plate appearances not named Derek Jeter.
Bernie Williams.
Correct. 2-0 Joe Buck.
That's
123.
Man, I'm so happy. This is making my week right now. I'm so bad at this stuff.
I was thinking of Yankees and kept thinking Derek Jeter and Paul O'Neill, and I knew O'Neill wasn't right.
Derek Jeter, 152 plate appearances. Bernie Williams, 123. That's second all time. 2-0 Joe Buck. Number 3, most home runs. What player? And it's a tie. There's 2 players.
Albert Pujols.
Incorrect.
Chad, feel free to jump in at any moment.
I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think of good Yankees again.
You need some
There's
coffee.
a lot of them.
Oh, I just can't imagine you asking me 3 questions that involve Yankees with being the answer for every one of them. So I
will give you a hint. These aren't Yankees.
okay.
Neither
Most
one's a
home
Yankee.
runs. Neither one. The number's 7.
Chase Utley.
Correct. Chase Utley had, I think, 5 bombs in 08 and 2 in 09, or maybe that's backwards. You also had Mr. Springer. Just very recently, he had
George.
7.
Oh,
He's
George
got
Springer.
7.
Yeah.
Or
I would
Altuve.
never
Altuve's got to
gotten
be
that.
up there. Yeah.
But Altuve's got a lot in the CS, but
Not the World
Series.
Series. Got it.
Utley had 5. Barry Bonds had, I think, 4 in one series in 02. But he only got there once.
Yeah.
3-0 Joe Buck. Chad, you okay?
Hey, if I'm down to a Hall of Famer, I'm still doing pretty well.
Not for
You're
baseball. Not for baseball.
Number 4, all-time most runs batted in. What player in the World Series?
Man,
Pujols. That's not
Incorrect.
right. Yeah, no.
I'd say I would go back to I don't want to say it, but I would say Jeter.
I get my first point with Big Papi, 14 runs batted in World Series games called by Joe Buck.
Okay.
Well, he had 1-on-1 swing against the Tigers and Joaquin Benoit
Yes.
at Fenway Park that I remember vividly. And yeah, I mean, I of all the guys that I've covered, I don't think anybody's been any more clutch than David Ortiz.
Unreal. Utley had 12. Lance Berkman with 11. Berkman had 11. Most of those in 2011, which was nuts.
Yeah.
Great baseball name. Joaquin Benoit.
Joaquin Benoit. Getting shut out here, Chopper. Number 5.
Happens.
Most wins by a pitcher in a Joe Buck World Series game.
Andy Pettit.
Correct. Mad Bum had 4. Lester, Schilling, Randy Johnson, and Kershaw with 3.
Mad Bum had 4 over like 5 days.
True. And Randy Johnson had 3 in one World Series.
Yeah.
And a save, maybe.
Mel Stottlemyre on us. Yeah.
Oh, boy. I think I'm going to win this one, but let's go with it. Most triples in a World Series game. And the number's 2.
Otis Nixon.
Incorrect. Good guess.
Thank you.
Darren Erstad.
Oh,
Another great guess. He would have had to have them both in 02. Paul O'Neill or Scott Podsednik. Scott Podsednik had 2 in, was that 05 for the White Sox? Paul O'Neill had 2 in the same series as well. So the score is 3-2 Joe Buck over Coach Ballgame. Chad Chop is non-existent.
Also ran.
Participated.
Yes.
All right. This is fairly recent. Most stolen bases in a Joe Buck World Series called game.
Altuve.
Incorrect.
Total. Right?
Overall. And this player's played for 2 teams in World Series.
Can I guess twice?
Yeah.
Mookie Betts.
correct. You're on
Yeah.
the board.
Let's go. Mook.
Mookie Betts has 5 stolen bases in Joe Buck World Series games.
2020, he had like 3 in a game or something.
Yeah, he
1996.
won the entire
that's true.
nation free tacos from Taco Bell.
That's a fact. That's
I
a
love
fact.
when you. I love when
that.
you do that. By the way,
I get that card and I'm like, oh my God, how am I gonna? I gotta read this, and then bang! Right, it was Betts, I think, wasn't it? Or
Yeah,
no,
it
who
was.
was it last year? It was like the first pitch, like the first chance. It
Was
wouldn't
it
have been Betts.
Albies? Was it Albies?
It was Albies.
I think it was Albies.
Yeah.
I love when you.
That's
I love
right.
when you. I love when you see somebody in the stands at a World Series game with a jug of milk and
That was my guy.
boom. So I walked through the security guard with my wife and I got the jug of milk because I just did a thing with Fox, thanks to you and the NLCS, where the kids poured milk all over me. So I brought it and I'm sitting beside Oliver Hudson and his beautiful wife. And you bring the camera over. But before that, to get into the game, Tara Jean thought there's no way he's going to let you in with a jug of milk. I get to the security gate. I have my wallet, my phone, and the jug of milk. This is World Series 2018, Dodger Stadium. And he looks at me and he says, "You love milk too?"
No way.
And I
You
said,
picked the right guy.
He
I
did.
mean,
I picked the right guy.
It could have. I don't know how many stand at the gates there. There was one guy that was going to
That
let you
guy.
in with milk,
Yeah.
and you found him. And I think that person should be fired, by the way.
Well, anyhow, first World Series was 1996. You always remember your first.
See,
Most hits in that series.
Andrew
This was the
Jones.
1990. This
Yes.
is good guess, incorrect. The 1996
Paul
World
O'Neill.
Series.
David
Incorrect.
Justice.
Oh, love those names. Incorrect. He
Joe
had
Girardi.
12. Joe
Joe?
Girardi had a triple that series.
Yes.
He had one triple, but not 12 hits.
Can we go back
No.
to Jeter?
It wasn't Jeter.
Okay, that's the obvious.
All right, you get the point. You
Yeah.
get the
Marquise
take the
point.
point.
Grissom. Marquise Grissom had
Oh.
12 hits.
And shame on me because
Yeah.
last year when the Braves won it all, you start looking at past Atlanta Braves postseason numbers.
Yep.
Marquise Grissom, I was stunned, and
Yeah.
I knew he was a really, really great player. But I mean, an October star for the Atlanta Braves.
Now,
Not quite Mark Lemke status, but he was close.
Oh,
Lemke
that's
was
right.
unbelievable.
Lemke's
Louser.
voice. How about Lemke's voice? How about Dave Stewart's voice juxtaposed with Mark Lemke's voice?
Yeah.
Like when you look at those guys and then you hear them, that shocked me.
Yeah.
That threw me for a loop.
No, that's
Anyhow.
yeah, that the greatest
Fucking
Vin
Grissom.
Scully story I ever heard
Yes.
was Lemke was at the plate and he's telling a story that I don't even think Mark Lemke knew about himself. And he was talking about how, as a kid, Mark Lemke's house, his backyard, to the left out of his back door was an insane asylum. To his right was just another piece of yard. That's how he learned to switch hit. Like he would hit home runs
so good.
right-handed, and the ball would go into an insane asylum.
That's so good.
So he learned how to hit left-handed so they would get the ball back. Here's a 2-1. Yeah.
the 2-1.
Like, was there a little smirk there, or
my
was
gosh.
he just flatlined that whole thing? It seems
Only
like-
outdone by the story he told about Madison Bumgarner and his wife nursing a baby rabbit back to health during spring training.
That's
It's
a
one of the
thing.
most unbelievable weaved in and out of play-by-play stories. It was an hour and a half long. They find this rabbit. It had been swallowed by a snake, and it's just going on and on. And then somebody hits a double into the gap. I mean, that now he's helped by the fact that there's nobody next to him because he unbelievably, remarkably, astonishingly did the games by himself. So it just blows my mind. So he doesn't have to wait for, somebody to chime in during the story, but oh my God. I mean, YouTube that. Do yourselves a favor and YouTube Vin Scully, Madison Bumgarner snake story.
No,
I've watched it 15 times.
I had a to-do list. I had a honey-do list today, but I'm crossing it all out and just putting that on.
Have you ever heard it?
Sorry, honey. No.
Have you heard that story?
No, I can't wait.
It's crazy.
That's
a baby
it.
rabbit they found on the side of the road in spring training in Arizona.
Yeah.
And
I know that they found the I know that they
still
found the
alive
rabbit
inside a snake, and they got it out of the snake. But that's Madison Bumgarner too. Like I would go so far away from that crime scene. If I pulled up on a snake swallowing a rabbit, I'm out. And
so good.
Madison and his wife nursed it back to health, because wouldn't you know it, it was still breathing. You got to hear it. It's unbelievable.
Going to the bottom of the fourth. No runs, no hits.
That's what's happening. Here's a ball into the right center field gap. That's going to be a double for. And then
right back
so
to
then
it.
Madison took
Then Madison.
gave it
man.
mouth to mouth. Anyway.
The best of all time.
The best,
amazing.
The best of all time. There is no question about that. But this is this is next level.
It's beautiful. Well, man, we could talk for an hour and a half. I know our producer's got to get to class. Old Tommy Gold hanging in there. Tommy, you're the man. I just wanted to. I mean, speaking of Vin Scully, you know, it'd be a crime not to talk about Jack Buck for a second. And just, I've met one of your daughters. I've coached your boys. They're such great kids. And that speaks a lot to you and Michelle and the way you love on them and teach them the right way of doing things. But what are you going to tell your boys when they're old enough? What do you want them to know about Jack when the time's right?
Man, I could take this 1,000 different ways. I will just say that he's a lot like how I described you. Like he is the kind of person that you hope he would be when you see the highlights, and none of us are defined by some compilation of great calls that my dad made hundreds of them, and his love for the game of baseball. People ask me, like, what's your favorite call of your dad's? It's a call that he has of Bob Gibson finishing off a no-hitter, because A, he loved Bob, B, he loved the beauty of the game and the talent of Bob Gibson. And you can hear his voice cracking because he's emotional watching this no-hitter being thrown by his friend and somebody who he really admired. And it's a strike call. And you can hear his voice cracking. That to me is better than the go crazy folks or the I don't believe what I just saw. All great calls, but it's just that, because that's kind of who he was. He was an emotional guy who never met a stranger and who had either a story or money for anybody who came into his path. And he was a Depression era kid who went to World War II and was injured in Germany, shot in Germany, came back to the United States, grew up dirt poor. The only reason he could go to college was because of the GI Bill, which sent kids once they got back to their state school. He was in Ohio, went to Ohio State. And that's when he developed this love for broadcasting, took classes from Woody Hayes, was on with Jonathan Winters as a young lad, this great comedian. People probably don't even know who that is. But
I do.
I mean, people of a certain age do. He's just kind of one of those guys. My dad at a banquet said one night that my mom had asked him the night before, what would you say if you met the Lord? And his answer was, why have you been so good to me? And I would say that anybody that was in his path, they would say, why is that guy being so good to me? Because he made everybody feel like they were the only person in the room. And that's a real gift. And he loved people. So they come from great stock that way.
Outstanding. Man, wish I could have met him, but I kind of feel like I did in a way. Just
I mean, that's who he was. You don't, he was best. His home run calls are great and all the other stuff. He was best during a rain delay. He was best in a blowout. Rain delay, most people just send it back to the station and they play elevator music or they do news or whatever. He's like, all right, let's go. Let's find anybody in the press box and bring them down. I'm going to interview them for the next half an hour. And then they'd get up and somebody else, it's an old scout or the organist would come in or whatever. And he would do these great interviews that were fascinating with people that weren't famous, but they had a story to tell. And I think that's a gift to be able to talk to anybody and learn about their life and make people listening care about it.
What a rich man to have that kind of vigor for other people, you know?
Yeah. I wish
really
I had
something to
more
look
of that. I'm more, kind of keep to myself and whatever. But he'd be gone for weeks at a time doing all the work that he did. And then he'd come home, we'd all go to dinner and somebody'd come up and be like, oh, Jack, can I just sit on down, pull up a chair. And now I haven't seen my dad in 2 weeks and I'm having dinner with my mom, my sister, my dad, and Kenny from Paducah, Kentucky, who met him at a banquet in 1964. So, I mean, some of that's good. Some of that's not so good. It's like, Kenny, please, I haven't talked to this guy in 2 weeks. But yeah, my dad was kind of crazy that way.
Awesome. Well, for any listeners out there, man, I love your book. I read it twice. So did my wife. We love your podcast. So does my wife. So does my mother-in-law. Like it really is just an honest conversation between two dads and husbands. And it's helped me a lot when I'm arguing with my wife. It's helped me coach. There's parallels to that as well. So get out there and listen, dads to daddy issues. And I love it. Chopper, you got anything, that this is Joe.
I mean, just a pleasure to have you, a pleasure to get to know you and meet you. And it's one of those things when Coach Ballgame vouches for a guy, like I know, what type of cloth you're torn from. And then when you get to meet you and hear about your dad, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like that's who I think of when I think of Joe Buck. So it's cool to meet you. And just thank you for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And you guys keep doing the good work you're doing. And all the things you said about my family. I mean, he's got two of the most precious little daughters, Ballgame does, who
I said, Avery, I'm talking to Joe Buck. What do you want me to ask him? She says, just tell him I miss Michelle.
Yeah.
I tell Michelle I miss her.
That's a good answer.
All of our friends are like that. I mean, they just step right on my throat and just go right for her.
It's fun. It's for me. I have 4 boys. And one of my favorite things as a dad is just being able to have those moments. I was driving my 7-year-old home from practice last night and Kobe Bryant came up. Right. And I told him about how Kobe talked about and a lot of people have said this, but I've heard Kobe talk about the one constant that we all have as athletes is time. Everyone gets 24 hours in a day, and his eyes lit up. And I was like, so Bo, you can be whatever you want and whoever you want. It's your choice. It's what you choose to do in those moments where we have that free time. And he was like so excited. And it's just cool to be a dad and just to and as a coach, give kids that hope, like dream big. You can do anything. You got to believe it first, but you can do it. Pretty cool.
Awesome. I mean, and it's making me realize I'm wasting time in the car with my boys. I'm like doing monologues from Jaws or
yes,
Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And you're talking about hope and time and everything else.
Day.
I'm failing my sons.
You lose. Good day, sir. I said good day.
Good day, sir.
Gene Wilder. So good.
Oh, the best. The absolute best.
Oh, it's so good.
My number one favorite of all time is Gene Wilder.
Same. We watched it the other night. We watched that Willy Wonka. No offense to Johnny Depp, amazing actor.
No offense to Johnny Depp. That really stunk.
I agree. No, I agree. But yeah, watching that with the kids, and I told them, I'm like, this is Gene Wilder, the best.
Because the whole movie is about heart. It's about trying to find a good boy to entrust his chocolate factory to, and this whole pretense of being a lunatic was all fake. That's what was entirely missed in the remake. My daughters and Tommy's dying because he's got to go to class right
Tommy,
now. But my daughters,
this is so worth it.
My daughters if I watched that movie with them once, I watched it with them 25 times. And then when the redo came out, the remake with Johnny Depp, it coincided with my youngest daughter Trudy's birthday, so she got her friends together. We all go, and it was terrible. I mean, terrible.
Bill Murray turned it
the
down.
whole thing.
Bill Murray turned that remake down.
I read the script.
I think that might have been a
like, where's the heart? What's the, because you were introducing that story to a whole new generation of potential fans, and you missed. It was just like a freak show, and it wasn't good.
Proud moment as a dad. My wife and I were like, hey, we're going to go get some dinner. Left the kids at home. And my middle son, Noah, he's like, hey, we're going to throw on Willy Wonka. I'm like, cool. Leave. Didn't know which version they turned on, hoping they did the right thing. Get home from Costco. Gene Wilder, you lose. Good days. I've never been more proud as a parent.
It's the little crazy lines of, oh no. Yeah. You have to go forward to go back. Yeah.
Strike that, reverse it.
Right.
So much time and so little to do. Wait, strike that, reverse it.
One time I'm doing an NFL game, and one of the players, tweaked a hamstring, and they're on the bike on the sideline trying to keep the hamstring warm or loosen it up. And I'm like, springtime, ding-a-ding-a-ding time, springtime, springtime.
So good.
Yeah. Gives it a little
kick. Yeah. Tommy Gold, pull out your phone. Video this. Joe, can you just give Tommy Gold's teacher a reason why he's tardy?
Well, I don't know how all I see for Tommy is a block. So I don't know if Tommy's like rolling into 5th grade late right now.
That's a good call.
College course.
Tommy's college course. Can you give Tommy's college professor?
What's the teacher's name? Yeah. What's the professor's name? Tommy, can you talk on this?
No, it's fine. You guys can keep going. I'll have this recorded and I'll send it to her. It's all good. No problem.
Oh, good. So we go another hour,
so
Joe.
I'm very sorry. First of all, it is not Tommy's fault. I was the one that was late. So if you roll this all the way back, had I not been late, which is all I give Oliver Hudson trouble for on my podcast called Daddy Issues, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Plug.
Yeah. I set this whole domino thing in motion, and now, poor Tommy's going to come in late to political science class, or where are we going?
What
do we have?
It's an anthropology class, but it's
anthropology.
Yeah.
Anthropology. Well,
no problem. We can keep it going.
Are you sure?
Right. I mean, I should get there.
He's a gamer. He's a grinder.
But
I love this.
I can email the teacher and make an arrangement out.
We've Juggernauts with Josh. We're going Juggernauts with Tommy Gold.
We don't need that for poor Tommy. We better stop this before Tommy's revealing things about his personal life that he doesn't want to ever, have out there.
I love you, Joe. Thank you so much.
All right. I love all three of you, starting Tommy first, then Chad Chop.
Oh, then Ballgame.
Then Ballgame.
Ben third. I need guys on base.
Reverse it.
Reverse it. The Bible says the last shall be first. So
I'm not. I batted like 113 with nobody on base. I need people on base.
113 higher than I did.
Hey-o.
We appreciate you. Hey, I'd love to play some golf. I heard you're good, so I'd love to. The three of us, and we'll find a fourth.
Let's go.
Okay.
Oh God.
Let's go.
And then I want to know what a Hoosier is on the next installment.
Like an Indiana Hoosier? I have no idea.
I don't know what a Hoosier is.
It's a hootenanny.
I can't answer that.
That's a participant in a hootenanny. I don't know.
All right, listeners, you'll find Joe on I think it's Packers, and you going Packers? You in the
Packers Niners on Saturday night, all bundled up. People think we're in an enclosed booth. We're not. It's going to be cold, hard to talk when it's 1.
Let's give him an attaboy, folks. 1, 2, 3.
Attaboy.
Attaboy.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks, Joe. See ya.
All right, guys. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Buck, man.
I can't wait to listen to that rabbit story with Vin Scully. Tommy Gold's got to go to anthropology.
Yeah, we'll bang it.
We're going to leave you with a bing, bang, boom. Have a great day and rake.
Don't forget to rake. See ya.